I don't want this to be a disaster. What do I do? He gave me the greatest advice that he could give anyone in this situation. He said, son, you have to win her heart. When he told me that, it was like, because I started thinking to myself, I'm trying to get her to come into my world.
Yeah.
Let me come into hers.
Yeah. One of the things I tell people all the time is like, man, so many of us know the cost of everything, don't know the value of anything.
Come on now.
Sometimes to be who God has called us to be and to go where God has destined us to go, we have to make some decisions. But it's not always easy to know when it's God that's telling us to move, or if it's just our mind, or if it's just something that we're just going through. Today, we're talking to my buddy, Steve Johnson, who definitely knows a thing about making decisions and letting God lead him when you have to make the tough calls. Steve, man, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Nice to be here. Nice to be here over there.
All right.
Man, I appreciate the introduction, man. I think that you put a little spice on it. I mean, I know how to make some decisions. I don't know if they have always been the right ones, but definitely. Definitely, I've been in that situation a few times or not.
Man, well, we've already started. They don't know that you done already dropped some nuggets. I told you to stop because I want everybody else to capture it.
Yeah.
But you've already blessed me right now, so I know you're gonna drop some good stuff. But help us, man. Tell us a little bit about your story. Just just high level hip hop version. Just tell us a little bit where you from.
Man, well, originally from Sacramento, California. My whole family is from over there. My mother's side, father's side of the family. That's where I was born, but I was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, Metro Atlanta, Georgia area. And a PK. I grew up in the church. That's the reason why my whole entire family migrated from the West Coast to down south to Atlanta. And man, just grew up in the church. Grew up, knowing God, grew up loving God. And then, just like how a lot of PKs do, we hit a certain age and we lose our mind and we got to go find it again, but man, I while I was at church and I was a young kid, man, I met my wife, who I knew at the time was going to be my wife. Her name is Bobby Johnson. I met her when I was 12 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old.
You knew right then at 10 or 12?
Man, I knew right then, man. Let me tell you how much I knew about it, brother. Like, I would tell my sisters. I would tell my mama, my daddy. I even told her mama.
Dang.
I went to her mama and I said, hey, Mom. She said, why are you calling me that? I said, well, because I'm going to marry your daughter. I'm 11, 12 years old telling this woman that I'm going to marry her daughter.
Though. I'm a daddy of girls. Hey, if some knucklehead run up on me, say, hey, dude, it's on.
Get ready.
Real. Yes.
Well, I'm going to tell you, brace yourself, sir. How many daughters you got?
I got 3.
Okay,
man.
but brace
and
yourself.
Cute, man, and everything. I'm like, look, I'm already strapped. Look, I'm telling you.
Already locked and loaded.
Yes, sir.
Well, man, so that was that story, man. And fast forward years later, I did my whole wilding out in my teen years, my young adult years, and 23 is when. So just a long story short, I'm pretty sure we'll probably get into it, but man, my who I said was going to be my wife at the time, we lost touch. She grew up, she's a little bit older than me, so she was far more wise and advanced than I was, right? And she went off to do her thing. I was doing my thing. And then it was Halloween night, 2005. We ran into each other in the club.
Okay.
All right. So I got my shades on. Now, this is when, it was cool to wear shades in the club, right? So I'm wearing shades, brother, and I'm at the bar, right? And it's me and my homeboy. And I mean, like, this is, okay, so imagine 2005 in the club, how you dress, right? Like, everything is big bomber jackets, like, T-shirts, jeans, Timberland boots, all of that, right? And so I feel this tap on the shoulder. And I turn around now, mind you, I haven't seen Bobby in maybe 5-6 years, right? I'm a grown man now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So the last time I saw her, I was a little teenager. Right. So, dude, I turned around. But when I tell you, if there was any cool I had in that club, it left immediately, dude. I saw her and was like, oh my God. Dude, the glasses fell off. I'm giving her a hug or whatever. But the crazy thing about it was she was there with her boyfriend. But you know,
it don't matter.
But you know, it didn't, brother.
I'm happy though.
Because right. Does he make you happy?
Right.
Well, you know, fast forward several years later, we just celebrated our 18th year anniversary. So we did that.
Great, man. And I see how you even tell a story now, man. Hey, she still got you.
Oh, brother, all the wrapped around her finger all day long, man. So it's a beautiful thing, man. But man, I mean, but in between this 18-year journey, right, of being married, of us having children together, Bobby, when we got married, she already had a 2-year-old daughter. And that was, so here I am 20, I got married when I was 23 years old. So Bobby and we start really officially dating when I was 22.
Okay.
And I was immature. I was, I was in the streets. It was, living by, the seam of my pants, man. But I knew that Bobby and I were in love and we wanted to do this and make this work. And I always knew that I wanted to get married at a young age or whatever. And she was the same way. But immediately when I got married, I was an instant dad.
Yeah.
And I had to shift. I had to grow up, man. When I tell you, like, I had to grow up, not to be a good husband. I had to grow up.
Yeah.
To be a great father, I had to really grow up because I didn't know and I had no practice time.
And how long do you think it took you, but from that time of marriage and becoming an instant dad, until you would consider yourself, okay, not necessarily good, but decent?
18 years.
Yeah.
No, still counting.
It's real, right?
Right. Because
it's a constant process. It never stops.
Brother, fatherhood is honestly not, it's one of those things where you never say I've arrived.
Yeah.
Right? Like as a father, you never say I've arrived to this moment where I'm a great dad.
Yeah.
I'm a good dad, because there's always seasons in your children's lives where you have to be different, or you have to transform. You have to grow up with in a certain area with you. So I'll never forget. So my dad was when he married my mom. My mom had 2 daughters already.
Okay,
those are my older sisters. Now, mind you, I didn't know that my older sisters had different fathers until I was a teenager. It wasn't because my parents were keeping that information against me. It was just the love that he showed us was so equal. Yeah. And it was nothing different between how he loved my sisters and me, and then my younger sister, that I never knew. Right. I until I start, you get older, you start asking questions about your family history. Right. And then that's when they told me that, oh yeah, by the way, your older sisters are, I'm not the biological father of your older sisters. So, which blew my mind. Right. So as I'm now in this situation where I am fathering a daughter who is not my biological daughter. She's 2 years old. So she old enough to know you ain't my daddy. Right. And she giving me that type of you ain't my daddy energy, brother. You know what I'm saying? I ain't even gonna lie.
The gate.
I'm not even gonna lie. I was telling my wife, like, you better get this, man. No, but the thing is that I'll never forget. There's certain moments and conversations that you have in your life that you'll never forget. Yeah. I had this conversation with my dad, and I said, Dad, I don't know what to do in this situation, because, literally this child, and this was like right before we got married, right when we got married, somewhere in that time. And I'm trying to build this relationship with this 2-year-old girl. Right. And but I wanted to be as organic as possible. And I called my dad and I was like in tears, dude, because I'm like, I don't want this to be a disaster. What do I do? He gave me the greatest advice that he could give anyone in this situation. He said, son, you have to win her heart. When he told me that, it was like, pfft, because I started thinking to myself, I'm trying to get her to come into my world.
Yeah.
Let me come into hers.
Yeah.
So in that moment, her name is Darius, Darus, and she, at the time was very inquisitive. She was always wanting to learn different things. And so me and her, we start watching a show together. We start watching Dora together, right? And that was our show that we would watch. Yeah. And she loved to speak Spanish. Right. And so I knew a little bit of Spanish. I knew some poquito, right? I knew a little bit, right? Back in the day, no, for real, I used to be able to hold my own, right?
Man, I know Dora. I'm the map.
Dude, listen, those songs are ingrained in my head. So what I started doing with her was I started teaching her Spanish. I started teaching her different colors and, different fruits. And then we kind of start talking a little bit. And when I tell you that opened up a door that I never thought would be opened, and the barriers just went down. And it was that and some other things, but it was just the conversation, the advice that my father gave me of, son, win her heart, which totally changed the direction of the relationship.
So you are now a father, and fast forward to now, you have, y'all have had a few more kids, right?
Yeah.
So y'all have a total of how many?
4.
4. So 4 kids.
Yes.
So you came into fatherhood, not necessarily the picture perfect.
For sure.
Picture, right? The picture perfect or ideal scenario, right? Yeah. So you're coming from one particular life, right? In regards to being in the church, and then stepping away and doing your thing, meeting your wife who you met at church when you was 12 with your lokes on,
Yeah.
You had 12. But everything is now, it's not that ideal picture perfect.
For sure.
This is how we would have wanted Steve to go through it, right? So tell me a little bit more about so now you're a father, but in between that time, like when you took that step away, even from church and just finding your way. Yeah. Right.
So you're asking like the time before?
Yeah. The time before leading up to that.
So, at the time it was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, everything was about, being bigger, being better, everything was glitz, everything was glamour, everything was like street, like that's when, drugs was sweeping through, especially the South and through Metro Atlanta with different, gangs and things of that nature or whatever. And so growing up in that, that's what had enticed me. And I wanted to be a part of that because it looked enticing, right? It looked, it looked fun. I was young, I was making money, and I wanted to make even faster money. And it was like, well, this is an avenue. Yeah. I knew a few people here, I knew a few people there. So it wasn't hard for me to find it because it was already there. So I went into that lifestyle. It was like, I was one of those confused people because it was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. I mean, because in the core of me, the foundation that was built was always there. That had never left. But even though it didn't show always on the outside, but on the outside, what I wanted to do was I wanted to run the streets. I wanted to be in the strip clubs. I wanted to go to, I wanted to spend $1,000 every weekend, $2,000 every weekend on liquor and VIP sections. And, I wanted to, make it rain in the club. That's what I wanted to do. And I did it. Right. But then it was a part of me that was always unfulfilled. And it was like a gaping hole. And here's another great conversation I had with my dad. This is when I kind of first started as a teenager, 17, 18, 19 years old, getting into that lifestyle. Physically, I would feel like hungry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you a grown boy,
Yeah,
17,
yeah,
18, 19, right?
yeah.
But let me tell you how slick my dad was. He always used stuff like this as a learning moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, man, Dad, I just, me and my dad would just have these conversations. He'd be like, man, well, how you feeling? What's going on? Just kind of like and later in life, I realized these conversations of, are you having sex?
Yeah.
Are you protecting yourself? He was trying to dig deep, find that. But I remember telling him, I said, man, I don't know what it is. I feel like I just eat, and I can't get filled.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, son, that's God.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, that's that hunger inside of you, that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, when I tell you this dude was so sick.
And you was like, no, I think I need a Snickers.
When I tell you this dude was so slick, man, he made me be like, you know what, Dad? You might be right. This might be God saying I'm not feeling myself enough with him, and that's why I have this void. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna keep on in these streets see if you're right, Dad. I'm gonna keep on doing that. But I mean, eventually I came back, and what it was, honestly, was running into Bobby again.
Mm-hmm.
That made me turn my life around.
Man.
Because if I didn't run into her that night, there's no telling.
Yeah.
But I promise you, me and you wouldn't be sitting right here talking.
Man. So when you say you were PK, you sort of glossed over that. You weren't really just a P. You weren't just like a PK. Like my folks come from Mississippi.
Yeah.
And so being a PK in Mississippi, where
my cricket letter.
A preacher come every twice every month. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's a different PK, right?
For sure.
You got the cemetery in the back of the church.
Yeah.
But you were more like what we would have considered from country Mississippi church, like more church royalty, so to speak, right? Y'all had a thriving ministry.
Right.
I mean, and it wasn't just your father. It was other family members, right? So it was just more than just being a PK. So what did that look like with the expectations of PK and now you're hungry for the Lord? It's like, what did that look like? And what decisions how did you make those decisions?
Yeah. And to your point, yes, it was a big family that was all in the ministry. My uncle is a bishop in Metro Atlanta area. My father is a pastor that was ordained by his brother. Bishop Flynn Johnson. My dad is Steve Johnson. All of the brothers were all in the ministry together. My uncle David, my uncle Ricky, my uncle Rodney. My father was in it. My aunt Debbie was married to B.B. Winans. So we used to have these church appreciations to where Pastor Creflo Dollar would be there. Bishop Eddie Long would be there. Bishop T.D. Jakes would come. I mean, and this is before they blew up, to what they eventually became to be. I mean, at the height of our church was probably anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000 members. So it was very well known, right? So, and like it was a lot of us. So I just named all the dads, and my aunt was married to, gospel royalty, right? And so there was this huge expectation of what we were going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was, like, even though from the outside looking in, that's what it was, I always felt like my side of the family, my Johnson flag, right, was like the black sheep of the family. So, but the expectations were still very high. My family is very talented. Mm-hmm. Singers, dancers, writers, music producers, everything. And the crazy thing was, it's very musically inclined, my family. I am not all the way. Now I will say this. I used to rap. I used to rap. Right? I used to be a part of a rap group. But I mean, that wasn't like, I was good. Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But when I tell you that I come from a family that's excellent in this, like I was good, but they are like
Okay.
upper echelon
Okay.
type. And
But
so
when I look at people like, yeah, I can't rap. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I played the tuba. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that ain't cool. You know what I'm saying? So I look at that like, dang, this
Yeah.
can rap, man.
Yeah.
You know.
No, and music is in me. Music is in me. I mean, I played the trumpet. I'm a lover of all type of genres of music and everything like that. But I knew that my calling wasn't in music per se. I always knew that my true calling was in speaking and in preaching, right? So I remember, one day after church, and we used to have church used to be 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
3-4 hours. And then after that, there was an elders meeting at the church.
Yeah.
So everybody's gone. It's like 2:00 in the afternoon, right? I'm in the church. I'm in the worship center, and it's just me in there. And so I get up in the pulpit, and I'm standing at the podium to an empty church, and there's a Bible right there. And I just said, I'm gonna flip to any verse and start preaching.
Now, how old were you when
Dude, I gotta be, I don't know, 9, 10, you know what I'm saying? Just playing, right? And I flipped to it, and I just found a verse. And I started preaching. One day, I was like, this sounds good.
Yeah.
I was looking around. I was like, did anybody hear that? Is it just me, right? And so, but then I kind of knew then that God was going to bless me in that way, in that aspect of using my voice, and then later in life, I realized that, okay, God is going to use my leadership, that he's been grooming me in to impact the lives of hundreds to thousands of people.
So with that, so you feel called, right? You know that God has something more for you, right? And every time I hear you talk, I always hear like a theme of it where it's like, man, I know there's more for me, right? And so you're 9, 10, preaching in the pulpit, empty seats, and then you go on, you have musical abilities, maybe not like, upper echelon, right? But you still have those capabilities, and you know that you're groomed for a leader. How did that resonate with you as you took a step back and started running the streets?
I mean, it from the standpoint of it never left. Like I still knew it was there. So it was just I've in every situation that I've been in since I was 14 years old, 12 years old, I've always been the leader. I've always been like, I've never been the one that was, one of the sheep that was just kind of following. Like, even when I didn't necessarily look for the leadership mantle, people be like, oh, Steve is going to like, hey, y'all, this is a group of people. We need to pick a leader. It's like, oh, all right, Steve is going to be Steve. And I'll be like, me, you know what I'm saying? And not on some old, fake humble, like, oh, me.
Right.
But, sometimes when I wasn't even, searching for it or looking for it, it would still follow me. So I knew that it was always there, even when it was the streets. And that was the dangerous thing, right? Because the dangerous thing is like this, like the devil will tell you straight up, you can still be, you can still use these talents. Just use them over here. And for me, I was like,
paid fast.
I was like, you're devil, you might be on something. I can still be a leader amongst men and do that over here in this light and still run the streets and whatever lust I have, whatever greed I have, feel that thing as much as I can and still use the talents that God has given me. Because see, the thing about your God-given talents is when he gives them to you, he gives them to you. I don't necessarily believe that, I'm not a believer in that God will take the talents away. I think that he'll take the opportunities away for you to use those talents and those gifts. And that was the thing that scared me the most. It was like, I knew that I was called to do something great, but it was like, if I don't turn things around, then God is going to take the opportunities away from me to where I can really showcase them and use them to the best of my ability. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes 100. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so now coming into it, you meet Bobby.
Right.
And it's like, I want to turn my life around.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like before, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, daddy,
Yeah.
yeah, but this is a little bit more appealing. But when you meet her, it's like, no, I want to now,
For sure.
right?
But it didn't come like that instant.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, Bobby and I got, okay, so everything was great when we were dating. First of all, I had my own place. Bobby was a sports marketer that was living in Detroit. She was a sports marketer for the Detroit Pistons and the Lions and the Tigers and all of that. And I convinced her to quit her job and come live with me.
Mm-hmm.
Come back home with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. We played house for a good 6, 7, 8 months, right? Got pregnant, everything. And then December 8th, 2006, we like, okay, we're going to get married. We're going to make it official. And literally when we said, I do, that's when all the hell broke loose.
Wow.
When I tell you that immediately, it was like, I don't even know this person. It was like, I didn't know her. She didn't know me. But later on, we realized what was happening was the whole time we was playing house.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time we was acting like husband and wife, God was not the foundation of that. But then as soon as we get married, now it's like, okay, God,
let's invite him
come
in
here. Let's show you how far we've gotten.
Yeah.
Let's show you how far we've come here. Come meet us over here. And God was like, nah, come on back. Let's start this thing over. And whatever we thought we built, we had to break it down and start all over. Dude, I didn't think my marriage was going to last for 2 years.
Wow.
I didn't think so.
So now, okay, now we're getting into the decision making.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're having to make decisions. You all hell is breaking loose,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, well, you now have to decide, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What do I do as a man, as a husband? Given the foundation that's been laid, what do I do? And how did you? Well, of course, you decided to stay. You wouldn't have made it 18 years.
No. She decided to stay. So a lot of times people think that it's the, and a lot of times it is, right? It's the man that walks away and leaves. There was one day I woke up, and everybody was gone. At the time, we had 2 kids. We had our daughter Darius, and we had Bobby just had our son Stevie, and he was probably about 3, 4 months old. And I woke up one day, and because I worked nights at the job I was at the time, and everybody was gone. But and that's normal sometimes, because she'll take the kids, she'll go to the park, or she'll go grocery shopping or whatever. But in this moment, I woke up and something just didn't feel right. Like the house felt a little bit more empty than normal. And so, 1 o'clock came, 2 o'clock came, 3 o'clock. And so I get on the phone and I'm like, hey, where you at? But she not answering. And then finally she picked up the phone at like 5 o'clock, and and we got one car at a time. And she was like, yeah, I'm gone. And I'm like, gone where?
To the store?
Yeah. Where you at?
Tell your daddy, I ain't coming home.
And that's when things got real for me, right? That's when things got real, because I realized that if I didn't make a change, then everything that I knew that God had planned for me and in store for me, I could lose it. And so I was like, these streets ain't worth it. This lifestyle I'm trying to still live is not worth it. I'm ready to give it up because I can't lose my family.
So, man, I hear so much in that, because it's like now you've attached value to not just to what God has blessed you with, not just the gifts, right? But you realize that he blessed you with the family. Yeah. And so now you've attached value to it, and you're saying, hold on. The price I gotta pay, right, to go play and have a little bit of fun ain't worth the same value here that I'm placing on this. And so now I'm at a crossroads, right? One of the things I tell people all the time is like, man, so many of us know the cost of everything, don't know the value of anything.
Come on now.
So it's like you're
preaching.
You'll hear people talk about, oh yeah, I got this for such and such amount of money, right? And it's cool, but it's like, what's the value, right? That's something different. What's the worth? Yeah. And a lot of times we will sit here and throw away the world what
away.
God has blessed us with, because we may be a little uncomfortable and we have not sat here and said what the worth and the value is.
Yeah.
But you said, okay, I recognize the value
Mm-hmm.
in this, and I'm not willing to pay that cost to give it up.
Right.
Right. So, so she comes back, right?
Yeah, she comes back. And you know, and there's a theme that you'll hear through my entire adult life, right? Is this theme of I'm going back and I'm asking my parents for advice.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents are well-known marriage counselors, and I called you know, immediately when she told me she was gone, I called my dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dad, Bobby done left me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So we going through that or whatever. And she was gone for like a couple of days. I didn't know where she was. I was like, she at her mama house, she at a friend house, something. She got the kids, whatever. But I just didn't know. Lo and behold, she was at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this until years later.
They didn't so you call him. He's like, yeah, what you expect? Son?
Listen, I know, no. The crazy thing is, I'm calling them, and they didn't let me know that she was over there.
Yeah.
They just kept it cool. It wasn't until like years later that they was like, oh yeah, when Bobby left, she came over to the house, just to let you know. So anyway, I'm like, y'all gotta come over. We need to all sit down and talk. It was the next day they came over, and or a couple days later they came over, and Bobby was there, and I just remember her being extremely cold, like very calloused, very like, you know, she didn't look at me the same. I didn't feel the warmth, nothing. And her and I was sitting right here. Bobby was sitting over there. My parents were sitting across from us. And I remember they were talking to us. And then, you know, I started talking. And I remember there was a moment where I said, I don't want to lose my family. And I put my head in my hands and I bawled, like tears just coming down my eyes, because God had showed me a glimpse of what life would be like without your family and without this union. And then also not that, but then what life is going to be like for your children, that now they're going to have to come up in the split. Like he showed me that quick in like 5 seconds. And I said, no, that's not my life. And at that moment I was like, I'll do whatever I need to do to get it right.
Let's stay right here.
Yeah.
Because one, we're talking about stuff that I didn't know we were going to talk about, which is great. But we're talking about how you've heard God. One, you had the foundation.
Yeah.
You had the parents to where you could go to.
For sure.
And so you sought counsel, right? Yeah. And in these moments, a lot of times, you know, people don't necessarily get those glimpses of, hey, this is what it's going to be like. You know, when you say that, I think of Christmas Carol, the Ghost of Christmas, you know.
Yeah.
Christmas yeah. So people don't always get that. So when you're going through this, I'm wondering, what is it that a lot of people, we tend to turn to what we have? Yeah. Right. You had parents, you had a solid foundation.
For sure.
What most people have is social media.
Yep.
Right. So you were a little bit further ahead in understanding, well, nah, this is God. Yeah. Right. And so if it's social media, man, I'm getting what I'm used to searching for.
That's a great question.
Right. So what does that look like in regards to, okay, this is God showing me this, that you don't want to lose your family because I've given you all of this? Well,
Chris, I'll honestly say this. So in that time of my life, I'll be honest, like it was harder for me to hear God, right? So that's why I was going to my parents a lot, because I know that they were hearing from God. Yeah. So I was like, if I can't necessarily hear, and I'm not sure because it's polluted, and it's a lot of noise, then let me go to somebody that's hearing clear, right? That was the young 20-something, right? Yeah. And that was the first just got married. But as I got older, I couldn't just keep going back to that well of my mom and my dad. Thankfully, they're still here, living or whatnot and vibrant and doing their thing. But like, it was easy access when they were in the metro Atlanta area. My parents, for the last 12 years, moved away. They live 12, 13, almost 14 years now. They're in Dallas, Texas. So sure, I can call them, but I used to be able to go over there. So, but the thing is, how do I start hearing God for myself?
Yeah.
How do I start knowing that that's God, right? God, there's a few times in my life where I'm like, oh, I know this is God. When God told me to marry Bobby, when God told me to leave my 17-year career at UPS, and also when God told me to leave Eagle's Nest, and which I'm a member at now. My family and I we're there now. But those are times when I know that God told me to do so. Okay. Now, go ahead.
Hit that, but I want to hit every last one of those.
Okay, for sure.
I know people are trying to wonder, okay, is this God telling me to marry this woman?
Yeah.
Is this God telling me to leave my job? Right?
Yeah.
Is this God, right? You know what I'm saying? So I want to say that, but I want you to go hit every last one specifically.
All right. Well, first off, let me say this though, because hearing God's voice is the way that you know that God is talking to you is, number one, you are in a relationship with him. Case in point, my children, we can be anywhere. We can be at a game, at one of their schools. We can be in a crowded area. It doesn't matter. They can be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 feet away from me. But when they call me, it could be 100 kids saying, Dad, Dad, Dad. But when I hear that one voice or those few voices, oh, I know that's my children.
Yep.
Vice versa. When I'm calling out to them, I could say, son. My boys will be like, that's Dad. And the reason being is because they have a relationship with me. We speak on a regular basis. See, how you know God is talking to you is because you're talking to God on a regular basis. Because you can't go seasons. You can't go days, weeks, months, years without talking to God, communing with him, having a relationship with him. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you're like, God, I need an answer about this. And then expect God to give you an answer. No. What you're going to do is you're going to hear your inner self talking. You're going to go to social media. Like you said, you're going to go listen to, your friends or whatever. And it's going to be a whole bunch of noise and you don't know what God is saying. So to me personally, the voice of God sounds like my dad's voice because that's who I've always gone to as a young man to go seek advice. So then when I realized that my relationship with God, one thing that I always envied about my father, and I wouldn't say envy, but would always respected and just loved about him was his relationship with God. There are mornings when I would wake up and he's at the kitchen table or he's face down on the floor and he's praying or whatever. And I'm like, I want that same relationship. So as I got older and I started to get that relationship with God, then God started talking to me and I start hearing him very distinctly. And it starts sounding like my dad's voice. Now, what God sounds like to you, I don't know.
Right.
But, or to anybody else that may be listening. But I would say that in order to hear him, you got to be in constant communication with him. So to your question, what was the first one
So you had you named 3 distinct moments where God told you to do something.
Yeah, man.
The first was marrying Bobby.
Yeah. So I was in a relationship with another young lady and great person, right? And it's so funny because when you're in it and people from the outside, they'd be like, oh man, Steve, look, you and so-and-so, y'all look so good together. Y'all, man, y'all kids going da-da-da-da-da. Y'all gonna do such great things. But there was something that I was like, something just don't feel right, God. And I don't know what it is. Now, granted, I was still like in the streets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, that core, that Jesus core was still there. So, but I remember it didn't, sometimes, let me tell you something. It didn't matter how crazy I was in the streets or my lifestyle. There were times where I just be like, man, I'm gonna fast. I need to fast real quick. You know, I need to go on a 2-week fast or something like that. And this was one of those times where we were going through premarital counseling, and things were coming up in this premarital counseling that I was like, you know, like red flags. And I'm pretty sure she probably had red flags too, right? And so I was like, God, I don't know if this is the right person. And I remember one day I was over my parents' house, and I went to my old room, and I was praying in there. And dude, I was in there and I was crying because I was like, God, I was like, I love her.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if she's the right one for me. And I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Guess who walks in my room?
Bobby.
No.
Your daddy.
My dad.
Yeah, your daddy.
My dad.
Your daddy. Cause you're talking to God.
My dad walks in my room.
I thought it was Bobby.
And he's like, no, and here's the crazy thing. I hadn't seen Bobby in 5-6 years, right? Like, she was, I wasn't thinking of her.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
So you was talking about the other. I was praying about the other.
I was praying about the other woman. And so my dad was like, what's up, son? You all right? And I was like, Dad, I just don't know if so-and-so is the right one for me. And I wanted him in that moment to tell me, you're right, son. Yeah. She ain't the one for you, right? But he didn't do that. Yeah. And so I left the conversation like, dang, Dad. But he gave me some great advice to keep praying. Ask God for a sign. And I said, all right. So I was praying, and I asked God for a sign. I said, God, without a shadow of a doubt, when something happens, I said, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I said, but when this thing happens, I know that this woman is not for me, and I don't need to continue pursuing it. Months had passed. I still remember the prayer I prayed. Me and this young lady were still together or whatever, but things is kind of rocky. I'm in the club. Halloween night.
Shut up, man.
Listen, brother.
In your movie, I'm like,
bro.
What happened?
Brother, I'm in the club, bro. I'm in the club. And listen, I'm going to tell you like this. God can talk to you wherever you are. God can talk to you. He can.
Gave him time, man. Sometimes
I gave him time. I gave him time. Yeah. I didn't put him in a box.
Yeah.
I didn't say, God, you got to give me a sign on this day, and it's got to be this. Yeah. No, I said, God, I wanted to hit me upside my head so hard that when it happens, I know that's you. Yeah. Dude, I'm in the club, dude. I'm not even thinking about nothing.
Circle.
No, I didn't even think. And then literally, I get a tap on my shoulder.
Man.
And it is the woman, the girl who is now the woman that I fell in love with years ago, that I hadn't seen or talked to in 5-6 years.
Wow.
And there she is standing in my face. Now, mind you this, when I was 10, 11 years old, let me tell you how in love I was with her. I used to write letters. At the beginning of the year, I used to write a letter to God. And it was like a prayer list. And number 14, I still got that letter, brother. Number 14 on that prayer list was, God, please help Bobby love me the way that I love her. Dude, that was like, I dated that letter.
Bro.
Dude, I still have that. I showed it to her. Like, I still got that. So understand that's the love I had for her. Now, I hadn't seen her. She's out of sight, out of mind. I thought that was just a love lost, whatever. Dude, I'm in the club. And she tapped me on my shoulder, and I see her, and I'm like, God, Jesus,
man,
that is you.
You would show her that letter. She'd have left her man that day. She's like, I'm just.
Well, here's the funny thing. I think that when she saw me and I saw her, I think right then and there, both of us knew that our lives would forever change.
Wow.
That nothing would be the same.
Wow.
Didn't know how it would work. Didn't know when it would work. But both of us knew. First of all, I was like, I'm never going to let her out of my sight again.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. I found you. I got you. I'm grown now.
Oh, man.
I got my own money.
So now, let me jump ahead, though.
Yeah.
When she leaves, now you feel like you mismanaged what God had blessed.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, it broke my heart. That's why I'm balling. That's why I got my head in my hands and I'm boo-hooing.
Man.
Because everything that I love I'm literally, and that God blessed me with, I'm literally losing it. And I'm in real time. And I'm like, nah, God, nah, not like this. Not like, it's like that Matrix movie when girl's like, not like this. Not like, I was like, God, not like this.
Man, all right. So to really know, first of all, you got to have a communication with God, regularly communicate.
For sure,
right?
For sure.
Then
to hear his voice clearly,
and then of course, don't paint him in a box.
Don't put him in a box.
So now we go to you leaving your job.
Yeah,
right?
man.
Corporate.
Right? Yeah.
So you're leaving your job. So how did you know? Because these are key moments in people's lives where people are seeking God, right? Yeah. So I'm like, well, okay, let's hit every last one. So now, how did you feel God was telling you to leave your job and to pursue? Well, I know what you went to pursue, but let everybody else
know. There's a thing called good discontent, right? To where I was like, God, I know that you want more from me. But I felt like I couldn't give him more because I was working 60-hour weeks. I was, I couldn't serve in the church like I wanted to serve. At the time, I was an ordained elder at Eagle's Nest, and there was a limit on what I could do. And I wanted to do impactful work. Like I wanted to be impactful. I wanted what I woke up in the morning and I did every day. I wanted it to make a difference. And I was like, I'm not making a difference here at UPS being a site lead. Sure, I'm making a difference in people's lives to where, I'm impacting them. I felt like I'm a good, decent leader, where I'm showing empathy, I have the right amount of accountability, all that good stuff. Right. But the thing is that I'm like, Lord, there's got to be something else. And, that was one of the scariest things that I could have done. And here's the deal too. Like for me personally, one of the ways that I know that it's God is, does it scare the hell out of me? Like can I do this with just my own strength? Or will it take him to intervene on my behalf to make it work?
Yeah.
Now here's the deal. Bobby's not working. We got 4 kids. I don't have a college degree at the time. And I'm the only income. Now, the only income, I ain't got no college degree, but the reason why I've moved up the way that I have, I've been in this company for 17 years. So, and then I've learned so much on the way. There's so many skills that I've learned and all that good stuff. So, and they saw the value in me. They've moved me up. But I'm like, nah, God, there's something else that I had that I got to be doing. And an opportunity came up to where the church, Eagle's Nest was growing, we went through a summer where God just blessed us. Like he just breathed on the ministry to where we literally went from like 800 people to like 2,000 people in a matter of 3 months. And things were falling, things were slipping out of our hands and because we didn't have the infrastructure. So I remember I came to Pastor Lee one day after a elders meeting. I said, hey man, how much would it be worth to you, to have me come on full-time staff? And he thought about it and he was like, man, I think that'll be great. Now, mind you, I am a site lead at UPS where I have over 1,000 people that report to me directly or indirectly. Dude, I'm paid. I get stocks every year. I have a 6-figure salary. Like I'm a well into 6-figure salary. Like I'm paid.
Yeah, you're good.
So I know that the church is not going to be able to match that. Dude. So when I tell you how for me, how I knew that, how I can tell when God is speaking to me or telling me to do something is, does it scare the hell out of me? And this scared me because it was, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Here's an opportunity for you to have the impact that you want, but you're going to have to trust me because it ain't the same type of money that you've been used to. Dude, I went from making probably total package $180,000, $200,000 to making,
not that.
at all, brother. Not that at all.
It's like, no.
And I'm like, what? And like, and I'm like, and people are like, you know, so my friends, my colleagues at UPS are like, what are you doing? They're like, where are you going? You know, what other Fortune 500 company are you going to now? You know what? And I said, oh, I'm working for my church. And people are like, how many members does your church have? I said, about 800, 900. Like, and people are looking at me like, you idiot.
Yeah.
But I knew it was God
Man.
telling me to do it. And man, I'm so glad that I did that. So glad.
So real quick, before we wrap, lastly, how did you know it was God telling you to leave? Because one of the things that I've experienced is people saying, you know, God brought you to me, or God brought me here, right? And then when something happens, they're quick to go, right?
Yeah.
You know, but you're saying, okay, God, you spent time with God, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, okay, I'm about to bounce, you know, because to fulfill my own, you know, to make myself comfortable, right? So how do you know when? How did you know when it was time for you to make another jump?
So sometimes God tells you to move and do something because it's something that He wants to build inside of you. And He wants you to grow in an area that you can't do in your current state. And God doesn't build your character. He doesn't build your strength in seasons of appeasement and seasons of comfortability. He doesn't do that in seasons of calm. He does that in seasons of chaos. He does that in seasons of where a famine. He doesn't do that in seasons of where there is ample resources. God wanted to do something different in me that He couldn't do while I was there and I was comfortable. And He wanted me to grow in certain areas. Didn't necessarily understand it, right? But I knew it was God. How did I know? Now, 15 years ago, if God told me to do this, I probably wouldn't have heard Him and been like, that ain't you, God. So here's the crazy part. The more you hear God and you're listening to Him and you are doing what He's asking you to do, the more you do that, the more He can trust you with some of the things that He tells you to do. So I was at a point in my life, in my relationship with Him, where He can tell me to do this and it doesn't totally freak me out. Now I was scared and it hurt. And there were times where I'll be driving to work in the morning, listening to worship music, crying, having a whole worship session, right? But didn't understand that God was saying, I know it hurts right now, but I'm building something inside of you that you're going to need in this next season of your life. Just stay right here. I compare it to the story of David. When I was in this season, when I left Eagle's Nest and I was gone for about 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years, I was really reading the story of David and studying that thing. And as I was doing it, God was showing me how David was once very comfortable, you know, in the king's court and comfortable with his life. And then God had to uproot him for him to be the man and to grow in certain areas that he had not grown in yet. So therefore, when it was time for him, he could come back and be who God has called him to be. So I think that, you know, my story is still being written from that aspect, but I'm so glad that I'm in a place where I was obedient and I allowed God to do that work in me. Because if I would have told God no, I would have said, no, I ain't leaving. This is everything I ever wanted. I don't think that I would have learned the lessons that I've learned today.
So what I hear is that you've always aspired for God's more. Right? You know, sometimes we have an idea of what we want more to look like.
For sure.
But even though you had achieved certain things and attained certain things, it's like, okay, no, I want God's more, because then I'll be fulfilled. And then even though because
that's so good,
being at a church.
Can I, and I know we got to wrap up, but that's so good what you said. And when you said that, you know, you want God's more, man, so often we're looking for our more. We want what we want.
Mm-hmm.
But what we want fails in comparison to what God really has for us.
Yeah.
But because, and it's this whole thing on faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't hold it, we can't smell it, it's not right in front of our faces, then we're like, nope, it's not there. We wanna be able, the human nature of things is to be able to say, I see that thing right there. That's what I'm going to go get. And God is saying, you don't even see what I got for you over here.
Right.
And to want God's more is, what is that really saying, right?
Yeah.
That's really saying, I'm going to practice in faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
Faith is going to be the cornerstone of what I do.
Yeah.
And when you get to that place, that's when God is like, bet, I got you. I got you.
So, yeah, hearing and seeing that, man, it just really inspires me, because there were relationships you built, right? And you had to leave that.
For sure.
Take your family, because you knew that God was just calling you to more. So in all of these, man, you've given us nuggets on how to really lean on God, how to really know that God is really calling you to move and to act, but to being able to trust him. But every step of the way, it just built more trust, saying, look, God, you helped me out here with Bobby, right? You helped me out here with leaving corporate. And now you're helping me out, building me up to being who you've called me to be. And so I'm going to continue to lean on you. And so it just, I just have so many stories regarding that. And I know we don't have the time.
Yeah.
Steve, man, we have to get you back out here, man.
Sure, I'd love to come back.
Man,
Thank you.
I don't know, what's your guilty pleasure, but we got water right here. I'll let you drink the water, I might have something else in my cup. But
the late night special.
The late night special, something brown, you know what I'm saying? So, we just got to get you back, man.
Yeah, man, we'd love to be here.
I appreciate the conversation so much. But before we go, let the people know how they can find you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm on Instagram. Stephen E. Johnson, is my handle there. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. Stephen Johnson, as well. So yeah, please look me up, reach out to me. I do public speaking, where I've done some really great things. And, I'm also, looking for other opportunities in the, leadership, kind of realm. So, in the consulting, space. So yeah, just look me up.
Man,
love to talk to you.
Much, Steve. Steve, you're a man after my own heart, man.
Hey, thank you, brother.
With you all day, man. So I appreciate you. I can't wait till you join us again. And so for those out there watching, I want you to know, go follow us out on all the social handles on I done messed that up. WAHBL podcast. When all hell breaks loose. Steve Johnson, I thank you. And I want you to let you know, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, even tell your enemies, but tell them we'd love to come check us out on the When All Hell Breaks Loose podcast. I'm your boy, Chris King. Like, subscribe, and send it to your friends, everybody, because things for season 2 are blowing up. You don't want to miss it. I love y'all. Be blessed. We're going to still keep all that in. Be blessed. I love y'all.